Have you felt overwhelmed at any point trying to keep track of all your tumblers and your coats and your sanding and timing? Well, today I want to take you behind the scenes exactly how I keep track of my tumbler system, my whole process. I'm going to explain my whole process to you today. The tips that I'm going to go through in this video actually went out to my email list last week. So if you want to be the first to know some of these tips and tricks and get an exclusive email every single week from me, click the link down below and sign up to be on that email list. It's super awesome. I share all of my best tips and tricks to the email list first before I put them anywhere else on social media. So make sure that you're signed up and let's get started. One of the biggest concerns about people switching from epoxy to CrystaLac is sort of being overwhelmed with the number of coats you have to do, when do you sand, how long do you have to wait, and how the heck can you get this all done in one day? And today I want to tell you that I can relate. When I was switching, I was kind of like, what the heck, how am I going to do this? And the more that I've been working on tumblers for the past 2 years, I have learned so much along the way, and I want to share with you that this can be a simple process and something that everybody can do. So here's what you need to know before you figure out what system works best for you, because there is no best system, right? Everybody's schedule is a little bit different. So what works for you is going to be the best for you. It might not be the best for me. So what you need to keep in mind is that every coat of Brite Tone takes 4 hours to dry. So you can put your Brite Tone on your cup, let it dry for 4 hours, and then do another coat. One thing is that you don't have to keep it on your spinner the whole time. It only really needs to spin for about an hour, and then you can switch it off. Now, depending on how many cups you're doing, how many turners you're doing, you may or may not want to do that. I consistently have about 12 cups going at once, so I need to free up space on my turner. And the last piece is just to know that you do sand every 3 or 4 coats. So once you do 3 coats, you can wait, like if you get 3 coats done in the day, wait till the next day, give it a good sand with 400 grit sandpaper, and then keep going. Before I get into my 5 tips, I want to know in the comments below if any of these tips resonate with you, if it's something you do, or if there's something I don't say and something that has helped you stay organized. I would love to hear it in the comments below so other people can see that too. So tip number 1 is to create cup groups. So the way I make sure that I am keeping track of my cups is to create groups. I have 4 cup turners, so that means I can have 4 cups in each of my groups. What works best for me, and I think would work great for you too, is to have 3 groups. So you have 3 groups with 4 cups each, or depending on how many turners you have. So if you have 2 turners, you would just have 2 cups in each of your groups. If you have 6 turners, you're gonna have 6 cups in each of your groups. And then that way you can do all of group 1 at once and then move on to group 2 and then move on to group 3. So what I do is I can consistently put my first coat on my cups pretty early in the morning because I wake up early. So at 6:30 in the morning, I coat all of group 1. And then an hour later, I can take those off and swap them out for group 2, and then I can coat group 2. In an ideal world, I will be putting coats on every 4 hours. So if I start at 6:30, that means I can do a coat at 6:30, at 10:30, at 2:30, and at 6:30. And then that would be group 1. And then group 2 would be 7:30, right? Just because it would just be 1 hour later. So 7:30, 11:30, 3:30, and 7:30. Now, it is not a perfect world, and I very rarely stay to a strict schedule because I have kids and a life and things happen. But that's sort of my plan going into it. So I try to stick to it as much as I can, but sometimes it takes longer than 4 hours, and that's totally fine too, right? As long as you wait at least 4 hours, you're totally good to go. But with those groups, and what really helps me remember when I need to switch them and when I need to recoat is to use my smart devices and my robots in my house. So tip number 2 is to utilize your phone or whatever smart devices you have in your house. I can say, hey Google, remind me in 4 hours to recoat cups. Or I can say, Alexa,
I'll remind you at 5:39 p.m.
Alexa, remind me in 4 hours to recoat cups. Or you can use Siri or whatever you have to set reminders. I personally like to use my phone because then if I'm somewhere else in my house, I will still get that reminder. If I use my Google Home hub in my kitchen and I'm outside, I might not get that notification. And then, so I'll do 1 to say, remind me in 4 hours to recoat group 1 or recoat group 2, whatever I'm at. And then I will also say, hey Google, remind me in 1 hour to switch cups. So then I know in 1 hour I can go back in my studio and switch my cups. And when I'm done coating, I will ask my phone to remind me in 4 hours. That just keeps me going. You can totally just write this down, keep a spreadsheet, keep a post-it, whatever. I need an actual reminder or I will forget. Tip number 3 is to write down your due dates. If you have orders that you need to get out at a certain time, I have them on a whiteboard calendar right on my wall so I can make sure that those cups that need to get out sooner are prioritized in my group list. This just helps me make sure that I get those cups done no matter what. Tip number 4 is to plan ahead and maybe wake up early, maybe stay up late, whatever you need to do. Every buddy's schedule is a little bit different. What you can do in your time is different than what I can do in my time. So if you need to wake up a little early to make sure you get a coat on before work, gotta do it. If you need to stay up a little late to get one last coat on before bed, do it. Those are the things that are gonna keep you on task, but we only have 24 hours in a day. So you may need to just rethink your daily schedule to make sure you get it on time. Now, if I was currently teaching, I would do one coat before I left for work. I would do one coat when I got home and one coat before bed. That's just what I would do if I had to leave for work for the day. Now, I don't want you to sacrifice your sleep, but you need to have a plan so you know how many coats you're trying to get and when you're gonna do them. Right? Going in blind is sort of when things get fuzzy for me, so I know I have a plan of attack, right? I know I'm gonna start group 1 at 6:30 in the morning, and I should be able to get 4 coats in that. And then I switch to group 2, and I usually can get 4 coats in group 2, but sometimes not. And group 3 is sort of like maybe some extras, and I can rotate which cups are in which group just to make sure that I'm getting enough coats on them. But having a plan before the day starts is gonna help you. And tip number 5 is that you do not need to track everything. You don't need to have like a running list. You don't need to know how many layers you have on your cup. You don't need to keep like a record of the time, right? Nobody's gonna come to your house and be like, well, how many coats did you put on yesterday? Or what exact times did you put the coats on that cup? Like, nobody cares about that. The only reason you need to know that you have like at least 3 coats, 3 or 4 before you do a sanding is really all you need to know. So if you consistently get 3 coats on every single day, you'll be able to sand the next day. That's sort of what I do. I know for sure that I, after a day, will be able to sand because I always get 3 coats. Or if I don't, then I will just kind of make a note on a Post-it and make sure that I don't sand it the next day and sand it the day after. But I don't want you to stress yourself out about all those details. What you need to know is 1, each coat of Brite Tone needs to dry for 4 hours. Every 3 or 4 coats, you're gonna sand. And it's best to sand after you let it dry overnight. So get 3 or 4 coats on during the day, wait overnight, sand in the morning, or just sand at any point the next day. And lastly, you can leave them on your turner longer than 1 hour, right? You don't have to take it off at the hour mark. It just helps free up the space to get more cups going at the same time. So if you put on a coat before work, you could leave it on your turner until you get home. I highly recommend a smart plug. I will link my favorite one down below, but you can set a timer to turn it off after 1 hour, or at a certain time every day, you can turn off your plugs. So that's one way that I like to sort of make sure my turners aren't running at all times. If you want to keep all of those details handy for yourselves, go ahead. I'm not saying that you can't, I'm just saying you don't need to. But if that makes you feel better and makes you feel more on top of what you're doing, use a spreadsheet. Use a piece of paper, right? Write down whatever you need. If I'm gonna use a spreadsheet, I like to use it in my Google Drive because then I can access it on my phone or my computer or kind of wherever I am. I like to have it on Google so then I am always able to access it and see what my timing looks like. But the best thing for me has been setting reminders on my phone. One thing that I have learned through this process is that the more I do, the more I can just feel my cup to see if it's ready to be sanded. So I really don't even pay that much of attention on how many coats I have. So the more comfortable you get with the products, the more you will just know what comes next. Let me know in the comments below if you would like more behind the scenes videos. If not, make sure you get on that email list so you can see all of the things that I do to run my own tumbler business. If you are new to making tumblers or new to the CrystaLac process, make sure you watch the video up on your screen where I go step by step through how to make a tumbler with CrystaLac products.